Yo, I was just doing some fusions and I got the legendary into it. This is one of my favorite blessing stones in the entire game. I think it's super duper strong, has a very high ceiling, and I really love the fact that you have to use some MP. So you move away from that full strength build and you get the benefit of using the MP build on Sung Jinwoo as well. So this thing, in my opinion, is one of the best blessing stones in the entire game. I had been using it with the purple rarity. I got legendary here, so I'm super excited about that. And yeah, because you know, you could get a dupe, you could get one you don't want, you could get anything, and it's such a wide cast. So pretty awesome. I got this. Hit that thumbs up as well for your boy. I'd appreciate it big time. That was a awesome fusion. Let's see if we can keep the luck going here while we're here. Maybe I can get a skill rune. That would be nice. That I don't have. I've got one chance, maybe two if this turns into something. Death Dance one. Okay, so we got kind of lucky there. I mean, super lucky. So I am super duper pumped about that. So I wanted to kind of take this opportunity to talk about the blessing stones in the game for Sung Jinwoo, because there are some really strong ones. You may not have even considered the Intuit one, but I wanted to take a look at the ones that we currently have in the game. So I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you happen to be new for more content, as well as that notification bell so you don't miss anything we upload here on the channel. That being said, 80% of viewers aren't subscribed, so make sure you do subscribe. I appreciate it. And there's a lot of them that I own, a lot of them that I don't own. I've gotten dupes of some of them, and then you have to go in and craft and use 1,000 soul lessons, and it's not fun. But we're going to cover these guys here today. Really quick, if you're not already supporting a creator, then make sure you do support me through the link down below in the description. The way that works is anytime you guys make any purchases in game, then the creator you're supporting does get the benefit of that too. It's like a small percentage, 3, 4, 5%, but it adds up. It actually adds up to a decent amount. So obviously, if you want it to help me, that's one of the best ways you can do so. And the trade-off is anybody that's supporting me can get the rewards that I'm given. So I can give out 30 traces of shadows, mana power extracts, 1,000 soul or essence stones. And there's going to be a couple more codes that pop up here, and there's other things like 500,000 gold. This is ongoing right now. So make sure that you guys do support. If you're not supporting, whether it's me or another creator, make sure, because you're just missing out on rewards. There's no reason not to. It's the only downside is that it is, I think, US only. That does suck, and I feel bad for everyone else. Maybe you can use a VPN or something if you're, you know, unable to support somebody. All right, so let's talk about the blessing stones in the game. We're also going to talk about some of the best combinations you guys can use and all that fun stuff. So let's cover it here, starting off with some of my favorite ones. You know what, actually, since we were talking about Intuit, I kind of want to start there because Intuit is one I think is really interesting. So the way that this one works is it gives you an attack increase. It's lagging here. It gives you an attack increase based on the amount of MP that you've invested, intelligence. So when you're talking about building your Sung Jinwoo, there's a lot of different ways you can build it. You can go full strength. Typically that have been one that we typically used, but there's started to be information about diminishing returns past like 300, 400 strength investment, to where you should probably put it back into other things like perception, which is funny because one of the original builds that we talked about was perception / attack build for Jinwoo, being one of the best ways. Also with this, you're leaning a bit towards a intelligence strength set build. So with this one at legendary, you're going to need 200 MP to get the max out of this. But I think with the one down heroic version, I would still use that. I used it for a good bit before I got this one today. In fact, I think it was 175 MP. Just do the math on it. It's not too hard. But the way it works is your basic attack increases by 6% for every 1 point of intelligence you have. This thing's been confused a good bit, because basic attack reads like it would just be your regular attack, but when I did my testing on this, it was boosting the attack of everything I did. It wasn't just my literal basic press the button, you know, press the A button or whatever. It wasn't just that, right? It was actually everything. So it was just an attack increase, and that's the way this reads. And it makes sense when you factor in that they're telling you not to invest in strength stat as much and to put those points elsewhere to get the effects of this. And you get a huge bonus because you not only get the benefit of putting the intelligence investment, which is, you know, cooldown, MP, blah, blah, but you also get the extra attack here based on how much you put, up to 1,200. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So this is one that I think is super duper meta, unless it's been understood differently and I've missed it. Super duper meta. I use it often, and I think everyone should use it. Desire, another new one, kind of tricky. This last bullet point, it takes off your desire effect, removes the effect for 10 seconds. when you gain the MP recovery effect, there's a lot of like MP recovery stuff. So I don't know if this is something that's going to get comboed later better, where there's more stuff that's kind of like a no MP build. Like you combo this with the other one that takes your gives you an attack increase but makes your stuff mana rampage cost more to use. Like I don't know if there's like a no MP type build that they're trying to go for. I don't really necessarily know, but in theory, Desire is super duper strong, but it's not one of my favorites. We Are One is one that I think is really strong, but particularly in Guild Boss, there's some of these that combo just in general with whatever, excuse me, you're doing. But some of them are really good in like Guild Boss, where you've got a lot of single element teams. So with this, you want to primarily try to use full light, full dark, whatever, to get the full bonuses off of this, because Sung and the characters that are on your team get all the benefits. So it's actually extremely strong for just flat bonuses you can get for attack, defense, and HP, which obviously boosts everyone's damage, etc., and their survivability. So I also really like a few of these other ones, like Pulverize, Tried and True. If the enemy has a break gauge, you are going to smash them pretty quickly. Very strong. Reawakening, one of the best ones in the game as well. Oh, it's 20 at legendary. Dude, this is so broken. So freaking broken. So this one combos really well with any. It can be used with anything, but it's kind of tricky when you start pulling your MP, because it's really hard to maintain a good amount of MP when you're able to use your skills faster, because obviously they're sucking up the MP. That's what makes the MP investment on your stat spread better when you are using into it. I would not really put too much there if you're not using into it, but if you're using into it, this combos very well with that, because of the fact you, again, will also have increased cooldown reduction and additional MP from the stat spread on Janu. But this one I also really like, just in general, whatever you're doing in any piece of content. I also like it in relation to other ones here, like, well, again, with whatever, you can pair it with anything. Like, so here's another combination of like all-in type stuff that I like. Double-edged sword, I like this one because when your attack hits, you do 4% more damage for 10 seconds, but the attack of the target also increases by 3%, stacking up to 4 times. Your attack bonus falls off, theirs doesn't, but you get, when you land an attack, you're getting a lot of attack, because 10 seconds is a good amount of time to stack, so you get a fat amount of attack off of that. And then here, not this one, Chains of Blood, when you're hit by a certain amount of damage, you take... you gain attack equal to 30% of your lost HP ratio. And this combos pretty well with that, because it's going to make you take more damage. And then you can also run, and this is like super niche build, but you can run Conqueror of Adversity with those to get extra stat gains. Yeah, the longevity from this, or survivability, is not great in relation to the fact you want to kind of get hit kind of hard for Chains of Blood, but the attack increase is nice. And then at that point, if you were to run those three together, you could run Into It in the 4th spot, you can run Reawakening in the 4th spot, you could run Bloodlust if you wanted to. I don't think you want the defense down so much, or the attack down, excuse me, benefit. But that's one that I like. Mana Rampage could also be the last one there. I like Mana Rampage specifically alongside Reawakening and Demon Slayer. I like using Demon Slayer for the MP recovery and the extra MP flat that it gives you. Though if you've got Legendary Into It, you probably don't need to go that far and use that Demon Slayer. And you probably also can't use Desire because it doesn't mesh well with Demon Slayer, I'd imagine. Fatal Strike. Whenever you land a critical hit, your enemy's break gauge goes down. That's really strong. Combos with mostly anything, but a really strong niche combo you can do is that with Sharp Perception, because this will increase your critical hit rate. A Legendary is awesome for this too. By 3% for 8 seconds when you land an attack, stacking up to 6 times. Critical hit rate going up like that is kind of insane, so keep that in mind. Another combination you can do for story content is Wolf Assassin, Boss Slayer. However, outside of story content, you can take on... You could take on like the Encore missions, whichever one it is that you instance Dungeon Encore. I think it's instance where you have to use Sung Jin. You could put the Truth Casca Fang on and put this on, and it turns this into what it is now, but it adds the effect of Boss Slayer, so it's a 2-in-1 because of that weapon and the way it works. Another one that I really like is Swiftness. I think this one is super strong in all pieces of content, particularly also for the extra chances it gives you to get those Shadow Steps on the Guild Boss too. And I like it a lot because of that. And with Guild Boss content, you kind of want to have Sung a lot of times being like a support character, putting the defense downs, the debuffs on the enemy, and having your other guys blow him up with damage, because Sung can't keep up for whatever reason. He can't keep up in damage with some of the other characters. So he kind of winds up being a utility buff bot in content like that. And then Swift Strike I like too, because it increases your damage whenever you land in Extreme Evasion. Extreme Evasion, typically, depending on where you're starting from, sends you to the back of the enemy. And another niche combo that you can do is that with Assassin's Proficiency. This increases your back attack damage. There's no restrictions on it, but you have to be behind the opponent, like the icon looks like. You got to be behind him, so that works pretty well in conjunction. And then Weakness Detection is one you can run no matter what. If you wanted to, you could always kind of put this on. It's always kind of there. I don't tend to use it all that often. I did a lot previously. Maybe if I had Legendary, I would use it more, but I've kind of moved away from it in terms of just trying to get more attack increases on my characters. You can do that if you wanted to. Bloodlust, one of the best ones in the game, gives you more survivability and makes the enemy take more damage. It does two things. Not a lot of these do a lot of different things like that, so great utility one that you're using in Guild Boss most of the time. Combos with mostly anything here as one of the 4 choices that you have, so keep that in mind when it comes to that. Is there any that we haven't talked about from this list here? I talked about Swiftness. We talked a little bit about Boss Slayer. Boss Slayer, like, you can use this and combo it with some of these dashy ones, like Swiftness specifically. I think it works pretty good with that. Or Speed. You can combo it with Speed if you want to. It completely offsets it, and then you get the benefit of the extra movement speed if you wanted to do that. A lot of times you kind of just run Boss Slayer with other increasing stuff, though. You don't really need to offset the deficiency of Boss Slayer. You can just put it with Intuit and Double-Edged Sword and Mana Rampage and call it a day, something like that. You can kind of just do stuff like that. But Boss Slayer is strong regardless. Demon Slayer, I kind of briefly talked about it. It's kind of just one of those ones that's there. You don't necessarily need it all too often, but it does combo well with Reawakening if you wanted to do that, like I mentioned previously. And then I don't care much about this. Maybe I will care more about this whenever they do buff the shadows eventually. They've talked about that, how they're going to have a new progression system for shadows finally. So maybe at some point I'll like this more, but for now I don't really care much about it. It doesn't really matter much. But what I will say actually is that the attack increase is kind of nice for the shadows like Egress and like Blades. They've got bleeds, don't they? They've got bleeds, and I'd assume that maybe they're doing more damage with the bleeds. I'm not sure, but Kai still should benefit from this too. And then Advanced Dagger Technique was one I liked a good bit earlier. Kind of don't care so much about it anymore. It's almost the Executioner set, which has largely been power crept out of the meta for this game, built into a Blessing Stone. So that's mostly everything. And like I said, some of the combinations pretty niche, but typically when you play this game, you are going to want to, ideally anyway, you're going to want some combination of these into it. Weakness Detection, Swiftness, Mana Rampage, Bloodlust, Pulverize if they have a break gauge. If not, you can ignore Pulverize. Reawakening. You typically want some combination of those. That's how your typical set looks like. You can get more burst damage out there if you're using Sharp Perception in some of these sets. Kind of just depends on what you're doing. Lastly, let's talk about the survival ones, and I've got to say this was a nice change. I really did like this change, so you don't have to feel like you're wasting a spot potentially on a daily quest completion or something. Aggressive defense gives you shields when you use your basic attack. I don't really care much about it. There's some stuff that increases your shield effectiveness. I wouldn't probably worry about that. Solidify gives you extra damage cut as time passes. This is solid. Solidify, it's solid, and I've used it a decent bit, but I don't know that you necessarily need it. I'd probably lean more towards some of the other stuff that we'll talk about in a second. Natural Disaster and Teamfight mode decrease damage taken. This is one that's specifically for, well, Teamfight can kind of be anywhere, but specifically for Guild Boss, I would put that on. Survival, when you successfully use Extreme Evasion 5 times, your defense increases. This is kind of cool. I like it, but I haven't found a need to use it. Life gives you shield on entry of a stage for 60 seconds. That's cute. 60 seconds, depending on what you're taking on, could be really useful. But are you really going to get hit that hard? Do you actually need this? I don't really know. HP Extraction is solid because of the fact it gives you constant heals. That can be beneficial in any content. Previously, I don't think it worked against bosses before it got reworked, but it can be used anywhere. It does have that cooldown versus bosses, but it's extremely strong in story-based content. I'm going to skip Camouflage and come back to it. Daily Quest is one that's... you eventually move away from this. You eventually do. You don't need it anymore after you get to a certain point. but it's so strong. it's so strong. It's so strong. Casca Steel Scales decreases your damage and increases your shield effect. So this is one that combos with the shield givers, like aggressive defense, and the other one up here that gives you shield. That one is really good with that. Or this one's also solid if you've got support characters that give you shields. That can be really good, and then also decreases your damage taken. So this is actually really strong. This is actually really strong for what it's worth. There's a lot of applicability to that. Tenacity here, your damage will decrease by 50% and your defense will increase by 50% when your HP is 30% or less. So it basically keeps you from dying. It's useful. You can use it. You can get use out of it is what I'm trying to say. Candy Arrow Blessing gives you more HP. That's solid. And then we start looking at some of these other ones. In a moment, I'll talk about moving rarities down. Camouflage. I actually did not understand this at all. At first, a while ago, I didn't understand like what was the benefit of this. Like I knew what it did, I saw how it worked, I tried it, I just didn't understand the benefit. The benefit of this thing that makes it super broken, and why I pretty much live by it, is you kind of get invincibility for a few seconds with the camouflage effect, and you can use that to reposition, stop taking damage, do a bunch of things. It's got so much utility, and then it heals you. So I actually really like this. It's extremely strong, and the cooldown is not crazy at 30 seconds. I actually really like camouflage, and like I said, I live by it. We're going to come back here and talk about some of these at lower rarities. Desire, I think you can use at heroic. Into it, I know you can use at heroic. We Are One, you can use at heroic. Swift Strike, it's okay at heroic. Assassin's Proficiency, I would not use. By the way, generally speaking, I wouldn't really use it. I gave you some niche options, but I wouldn't really use it. So I wouldn't use it at lower rarities. Fatal Strike, you can use it if you wanted to, but I would probably just skew more towards a heroic rarity. Pulverize instead of Fatal Strike, for the record. Weakness Detection you can use, but there are better options, especially if you start getting legendaries in some of these, like Mana Rampage. Swiftness is solid. I would use this at heroic rarity. In fact, I only have it there and I've used it a good bit. Double-edged sword, you still get most of the benefit from this, especially if you need to take more damage for whatever build you're running. I would consider using it at lower rarities. Boss Slayer, same thing. However, again, like I mentioned, with whatever it was, weakness detection, I think you probably can move away from it and use other stuff, because I think it's 12%. I think they're both 12%, right? At heroic. You can use something else at that point, because it's not like it's a crazy amount. 20 is really high. Chains of Blood, you can use this at whatever rarity. You can use this at whatever rarity, but I don't think it gives you the MP recovery effect. It does. Okay, it's just much smaller in general. They're all that way, but that one's much smaller. I would probably not use this below legendary rarity. You can still get the benefit of it, but it's not really worth it. Wolf Assassin, only reason I'm using this in general in any rarity is to get the Casca Fang effect, because you just don't need it. It's good in story content, and it's probably good in the Jeju Ant raids, but you don't really need it. Pulverize, yes, you can use this at whatever rarity. Bloodlust, same deal. Sharp Perception, any rarity. Reawakening, any rarity. Mana Rampage, any rarity. Monarch's Domain, I'm not using. Speed, any rarity if you wanted to, but probably not using it. And same goes for advanced dagger techniques. At aggressive defense, probably not really using this in general. Solidify at a lower rarity, fine, but don't really need it. The good news is these slots kind of doesn't really matter as much for survival stuff, because you kind of have a lot of options, and they're all like almost equivalently tiered. This is almost whatever. It doesn't really matter much. If you want to use it in team fight content, go for it. This one I'm not using at lower rarities. It's just not the best. Getting a defense increase is fine, but the name of this game is offense, and the reason why is timers. So you got to worry more about that than your defense. Now this is a survivability slot. It's not taking away from your offense, and this is fine. Like, you can get the benefit of this. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not that this is bad. I just personally would skew away from it. This is cool and all. Don't really necessarily need the shield, but if you wanted to do that for the first 60, you could go for that. HP extraction, good in story content. Camouflage, ding, ding, ding. Any rarity, I'm using it just because the utility of the camouflage itself. Any rarity, I'm using daily quest. Casca Steel, heroic is fine. I think that's fine. That's all I have also. I think that's fine. That's where I've used it. Same for Tenacity. If you need these, 50% is a good bit. I would consider using it there. Candy Arrow Blessing for the HP is solid too. Any rarity as well. However, diminishing returns do kick in with some of these at lower rarities. But yeah, I mainly talked about how you would want to consider using this stuff. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Again, remember, do support if you're not already supporting a creator, not just because my benefit, but because you guys miss out on rewards like you do. There's a lot that you're missing out on because we're getting those constantly. So get all that stuff. Make sure you're not missing anything. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next video.